Ladies, when a man goes quiet, it's not because he doesn't have anything to say. It's because he already said it in his mind. See, ladies, men don't process emotions the same way you do. When a woman goes quiet, she might be thinking, healing, or waiting. But when a man goes silent, especially in a relationship, that silence is loud. That's the silence of a decision already made. When a man goes quiet, it's easy to think he just needs space or time. You might tell yourself he's just stressed, busy, or going through something personal, but the truth is often simpler and harder to accept. When a man goes quiet, especially in a relationship, it usually means he's already made a decision in his mind. Silence is not an accident for men. It's not confusion, it's a conclusion. By the time he stops talking, pulling back, avoiding confrontation, it's because he no longer sees the point in explaining where he stands. He already knows. Men communicate differently. While women often process their thoughts and emotions out loud, men tend to do it internally. They don't always feel the need to speak everything they're thinking. And when they've decided something big, like stepping back from a relationship, they don't always announce it. They just start acting differently. That silence, it's not him searching for clarity, it's him pulling away, mentally and emotionally, before he physically walks out the door. It's easier for him to stop responding than it is to explain why he doesn't feel the same anymore. Because deep down, he knows the words will hurt you, so instead he stays quiet. He disappears slowly. The calls stop. The texts fade. The plans get canceled. The vibe changes. In the beginning, he was all in. He pursued you. He made you laugh, made time for you, showed you attention, effort, consistency. You didn't have to wonder how he felt because he made it clear. When a man wants something, he shows up. But when a man goes quiet, he's no longer showing up in that same way. That's not your imagination. It's reality. That shift you feel, that gut instinct that something's off, you're right. A man's silence is often the first symptom of emotional withdrawal. The decision might not have been made overnight. Maybe he started checking out weeks or months ago, but once he goes quiet, the decision is done. It's no longer a question of if he's leaving emotionally. It's a matter of when. Sometimes you want to ask him what's wrong. You want to sit him down and have that deep talk. You want to fix what's broken, bring back the closeness. But if he's already gone quiet, if he's emotionally checked out, he might not even engage in that conversation. He'll say he's fine. He'll say nothing's wrong. He'll avoid the discussion entirely. That's because he doesn't want to be pulled back in. He doesn't want to give you hope when he knows he's already made his decision. That avoidance isn't because he doesn't care about you as a person. It's because he's trying to make the exit easier for himself. The less he says, the fewer loose ends he has to tie. What makes it harder is that sometimes a man can still act polite, still check in occasionally, still respond here and there. And that little effort tricks you into thinking maybe there's still something left. Maybe he's just going through a phase. But in reality, it's just remnants of who he used to be when he cared more. That kindness isn't love anymore. It's habit or guilt. A man who's still emotionally invested will never leave you questioning your place. He won't be silent when he sees you hurting. He won't create distance if he wants to stay connected. So you start doing more, you overextend, you reach out more, text more, ask for clarity, you try to remind him of what you two had. But the truth is, once a man has decided to move on in his mind, there's little you can do to change that. Your effort becomes noise to someone who's already decided to turn the volume down. And that realization is painful but necessary, because chasing after someone who's gone quiet only leads to more confusion, more heartache, more wasted energy. It's not your job to prove your worth to someone who's already made up their mind. That silence is your answer. It's not the answer you wanted, but it's the one you needed. Because when a man stops talking, stops showing effort, stops meeting you halfway, he's telling you exactly where he stands without saying a word. He's showing you that you're no longer his priority. He's showing you that he's done without being direct. And that's a hard truth to face, but it's better than holding on to false hope. You deserve communication. You deserve clarity. You deserve consistency. You shouldn't have to beg someone to talk to you, to explain themselves, to show they care. If someone can go silent on you, that's a sign they don't value the relationship the way you do. And in that moment, you have to make your own decision. You have to stop waiting for closure from someone who already closed the door. You have to stop rereading old messages, overanalyzing old conversations, wondering what you did wrong. Because it's not always about what you did. Sometimes it's just about who he became and the fact that he no longer sees you as part of his future. Don't try to break the silence with words he's not willing to hear. Don't chase the quiet hoping to revive what's already been buried. Instead, take the silence as a message. Let it guide you back to yourself. Let it remind you that if someone can be silent in your pain, then they're not worthy of your presence in their peace. Let that silence be your turning point, because in that stillness, you'll find your strength. And when you stop listening for his voice, you'll finally start hearing your own. When a man grows silent in a relationship, it's often more than just a temporary mood or a passing thought. That quietness, that shift in energy is usually the sign of a decision already made within him. Men by nature are more internal processors. When something is bothering them or when they feel differently about someone, they're less likely to immediately talk about it. Instead, they go inside their heads, they think, they evaluate, and then many times they decide silently. The change doesn't always start with a big fight or a dramatic exit. Sometimes it starts with small things, shorter replies, fewer calls, less eye contact, less excitement. And those small things, they stack up, forming a wall of silence between you and him. What makes this process so painful is that it often happens quietly, without warning. One moment everything feels right or at least stable, and the next he starts pulling away. At first, you don't want to believe it. You try to justify it. Maybe he's just tired. Maybe work is stressful. Maybe he just needs some time to himself. And while those things may be partially true, they often mask a deeper truth. He's mentally checked out. And when a man is checked out mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, the physical withdrawal is not far behind. But instead of explaining or having an honest conversation, he chooses silence. It's not cowardice necessarily, it's comfort. It's his way of making the process less messy. But to you, it feels like abandonment in slow motion. You start asking yourself, what changed? You rewind every recent moment, looking for clues, searching for mistakes, trying to find where things went wrong. You overanalyze the last argument, the last look, the last message. And while you're lost in that spiral, he's already several steps ahead in his mind. The silence becomes louder. It wraps around every unanswered question, every plan left hanging, every I miss you don't hear back. That silence isn't peaceful. It's full of noise. It screams of distance, of detachment, of a love that is no longer fighting to stay alive. You want to fix it. That's the instinct. You want to reach out, talk it through, bring him back to the version of himself who once held you tighter, who once made you feel seen, chosen, and safe. But what you're trying to save might already be gone in his heart. And that's a brutal reality to face. Loving someone who has already moved on internally, It's like being the only person in a room calling out to someone who's no longer listening. You keep talking, but he's stopped hearing you. Not because you're not worth hearing, but because he's already formed a conclusion. He's already convinced himself that there's no need to respond, no need to explain, no need to engage. And in that silence, you begin to question yourself. Am I not enough? Did I push too hard? Was I too emotional, too needy, too distant? You search for the blame within yourself because he didn't give you an answer. But his silence doesn't define your worth. His lack of words isn't a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of his decision-making process. It's how he handles emotional exits. He doesn't confront, he detaches. He doesn't explain, he disappears. And as much as you want to believe that silence means confusion or hesitation, most of the time it means certainty. He's made up his mind. He just doesn't want to go through the discomfort of telling you directly. But here's the truth you need to understand. Silence is an answer. It might not be the one you asked for, but it's the one he gave. And in relationships, that answer has weight. It's not your job to decode every silent moment, to chase every unread message, to prove your worth to someone who has already stopped showing up for you. It's your job to recognize that when someone stops speaking, when someone stops engaging, they've made a choice. And once you see that clearly, you stop wasting energy trying to revive what's no longer breathing. The hardest part isn't accepting that he's quiet. It's accepting what the quiet means. It means he's not willing to fight for the relationship the way you are. It means he's no longer invested in building something together. And that hurts deeply because you remember the version of him who did care. You remember the laughs, the late night talks, the feeling of being loved. But that version no longer exists in your present. Holding on to who he was won't bring him back. And clinging to silence, hoping it will turn into answers, only prolongs your pain. You need to understand that your peace matters too. You deserve a relationship where communication is consistent, where silence is not used as a weapon or an escape. You deserve someone who won't go quiet when things get hard, but instead stays to talk, to listen, to work through the rough parts. A real connection isn't just about the good times. It's about how you handle the silent ones. And if the silence only comes from one side, it's not a partnership. It's a slow rejection dressed up in politeness. So when he goes quiet, listen to that silence. Don't fight it. Don't beg for words from someone who doesn't want to offer them. Let that silence show you the truth. Let it teach you that love is not something you chase. It's something you share. If he's already decided in his heart that he's done, then your decision must be to choose yourself. Walk away, not because you don't love him anymore, but because you love yourself enough to not stay where you're no longer heard. Let his silence be the moment you get louder for yourself. Let it be the moment you decide that you don't need anyone to complete you, especially not someone who couldn't even communicate with you. And in time, that silence won't hurt. It'll become a memory, a reminder of what you overcame, a chapter you outgrew, and you'll realize that his silence, though painful, gave you the space to find your own voice again. When a man grows quiet in a relationship, it can feel confusing at first. One day, things seem fine. You talk, you laugh, you share little moments, and then slowly, without warning, his energy shifts. The texts take longer. The calls become shorter. The warmth in his eyes starts to fade, and before you know it, he's distant, silent, detached. You can feel the gap growing between you, but you can't quite explain why. You start wondering what went wrong, trying to make sense of his silence. But in reality, when a man goes quiet, it's often not because he's confused, it's because he's already made a decision. He's made it in his heart, in his mind, long before his actions showed it. Men often don't like confrontation when it comes to emotions. They may not feel equipped to have that hard conversation, so instead, they choose the easier path, silence. It's their way of stepping back without having to say the words that might cause pain, but that silence is heavy. It's full of meaning. It's not just absence of sound, it's absence of presence, effort, connection. And when a man who used to be present starts fading into silence, he's already halfway out emotionally. You may not see it immediately, but deep down you feel it. It sits in your chest like a weight. His silence doesn't bring peace, it brings uncertainty, doubt, and a slow unraveling of the bond you once thought was secure. The hardest part is the waiting. You wait for him to come around. You wait for the old version of him to return. You give him the benefit of the doubt. You tell yourself maybe he's just stressed, tired, or needs space. You hold on to hope that he's just in a phase. But as days turn into weeks, the silence grows. The connection fades. You're still holding on, still reaching out, still trying to keep the love alive. Meanwhile, he's drifting further and further away. That kind of emotional gap can make you feel invisible, like you no longer matter in the way you once did. You begin overthinking everything. You replay conversations in your head. Was I too much? Did I push him away? Did I miss something? You start blaming yourself for his silence. But the truth is, you're not responsible for how someone else chooses to communicate or not communicate. If a man decides to shut down and shut you out, that's not on you. It's not your job to decode his silence or chase him into explaining what he's too afraid to say. Silence isn't always confusion. Sometimes it's clarity disguised as distance. Sometimes it's a way of saying, I'm done, without having the courage to say it aloud. And the silence doesn't just stay between the two of you, it starts affecting you. You lose sleep. You check your phone more often, you try harder, you lower your standards just to feel seen again. But the more you do, the less he responds. It's like you're shouting into a void. The man who once made you feel special now makes you feel alone. And that's the most painful kind of loneliness. The kind that comes from being close to someone who's already emotionally gone. You deserve more than that. You deserve someone who shows up, not someone who slowly disappears. You deserve communication, not confusion. A man who cares doesn't go silent when things get hard. He leans in, he talks, he makes an effort to work through the tension. Silence should never be the answer to love. And if someone chooses to go quiet rather than engage, then that's all the answer you need. Eventually, you'll stop reaching out, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally accepted the truth. His silence spoke louder than words ever could. It told you where you stood. It told you what you meant to him in this moment and gave you the clarity you were begging to receive. You may never get the closure you wanted, but that's okay. You don't need his explanation to heal. You need your decision to move forward. So when he goes quiet, take that as your sign. Don't wait for him to come back with half-hearted words or empty apologies. Don't wait to be chosen by someone who had the chance to choose you and didn't. Choose yourself. Choose peace over confusion, honesty over avoidance, clarity over chaos, and know that the right man, the one who truly values you, won't go silent when you need him most. He'll speak, he'll stay, and he'll make sure you never have to wonder where you stand. When a man starts to grow quiet, it often signals something deeper than just needing space. That quietness can be so subtle at first that you barely notice it. Maybe he stops sending good morning texts. Maybe he doesn't ask about your day like he used to. The conversations become shorter, the laughs less frequent, and the energy between you feels off. You try not to panic. You convince yourself he's just tired, that everyone goes through low moments, that he'll come back around. But as time goes on, the silence doesn't fade. It grows louder. And what you start to realize is that his silence isn't a momentary mood. It's a decision. Men often struggle with expressing their feelings, especially when they know those feelings might hurt someone they care about. So instead of being direct, they become distant. Instead of saying, I don't feel the same anymore, they stop calling. Instead of admitting, I don't see a future here, they ignore the future completely. They think they're doing the kinder thing by not having a painful conversation. But what they don't realize is that silence hurts just as much, if not more, because it leaves you in the dark trying to fill in the blanks yourself. And in that space, your mind starts running wild. You begin to analyze every detail. Did I say something wrong? Was I too clingy, too cold? You take responsibility for the silence, thinking that if you just do something differently, he'll come back to you. You send that extra message. You ask if everything's okay. You try to recreate the moments that once made him smile, but none of it works, because once a man has emotionally checked out, he's already moved on in ways you can't see. He may still be physically present, but his heart is somewhere else. He's no longer invested in building something with you, and that's why the silence feels so empty, because it is. It's easy to hope that the silence means he's just confused or overwhelmed. Hope is what keeps you hanging on. You wait for a sign, for a message, for a shift. You think maybe if you give it time, he'll come back to himself, back to you. But deep down, you feel the truth. Silence isn't a pause. It's an ending. It's the sound of someone already leaving, just without the door slammed. And no matter how much you try to fight it, you can't force someone to stay who's already halfway gone. What makes it harder is that he may not be cruel. He may not do anything loud or obvious. He may still be polite. He may even check in now and then, just enough to keep you from letting go completely. But that little bit of effort isn't love. It's habit or guilt or convenience. And you can't build a future on a maybe. You can't build your self-worth on crumbs of attention from someone who no longer values the whole of who you are. And so you come to a crossroads. You can keep waiting, keep guessing, keep hoping he breaks the silence and comes back with clarity, or you can listen to what the silence is telling you and choose to move forward. That choice isn't easy. It means letting go of what you thought you had. It means accepting that the version of him you fell for doesn't exist anymore. It means grieving something that doesn't have a proper goodbye, but in that process, you begin to reclaim your strength. You begin to see that you don't need someone who won't even talk to you when things get hard. You don't need a relationship where silence replaces conversation. You deserve someone who shows up when it matters, who communicates even when it's difficult, who respects you enough to be honest, even if the truth hurts. Because love isn't just about chemistry or attraction. Love is about effort, consistency, and communication. And if someone can't offer that, they don't deserve your energy. Eventually, the pain of the silence will start to fade. It will hurt less when you think of him. The unanswered questions will lose their weight, and you'll stop waiting for an explanation that never came. You'll realize that his silence gave you the freedom to hear your own voice again. It gave you the opportunity to choose peace over uncertainty, to choose yourself. And when you look back, you'll see the strength it took to walk away, not because you stopped loving him, but because you finally started loving yourself enough not to stay where you were being quietly left behind.